got contracts out there that say you can't say Jesus. When we was working on this album, people used to be coming over the studio just to say Jesus.
If you look at the most that is happening in the Western world, if you have been watching, I expect you to be watching, you will see contentions. The kingdom of light and darkness contending.
The main goal of the enemy at this stage is to reach the administrative borders of the Luhansk and Donetsk regions, keep the land corridor with the occupied Crimean Peninsula, and block Ukraine's maritime communications.
Now, the coronavirus was significant. Many of you have actually forgotten that we actually had that pandemic. For me, this is my own thinking, my own opinion. I believe that that event marked the end of an era and the ushering in of another era. Now, you see the much that happened in the Balenciaga controversy. That was Satan trying to launch a major agenda.
Kim Kardashian is once again defending her response to the Balenciaga scandal, and Kanye's not here for it.
And the relationship to Balenciaga. The enemy's plan is set up far before the fallout.
However, this is textbook gaslighting, because Kim made it sound like fans were being petty and wanted to cancel Balenciaga just because they didn't like their campaigns. But the real issue was that Balenciaga included actual references to CP, and this still wasn't enough for Kim to cut ties with them.
They are not just comfortable with the much they have done with gay rights and all of those things. They now want to take it even further. Circumspection is key in this season.
Is there a Messiah?
In Judaism?
In Judaism?
Jews invented the Messiah. When Christians think of the Messiah, they think of someone who's divine.
Yeah.
They think of, the end of days. What we have for the Messiah is a man, a king of this earth, who's going to bring peace among the nations in this world.
And he will not be divine.
He will not be divine.
And the only way the devil can reach many Christians who are quite firm in the faith is by error, false doctrine. What Duncan Williams, with all due respect to him, and all of those ministers who are now aligning with that agenda are doing is handling the devil a very wonderful tool to use against the church. We must embrace the simplicity of the gospel. Any attempts to have all of these additions that they're bringing now will not all go well. These are the times to make deliberate decisions to improving our knowledge of God. It has never been more imperative. If you've been taking notes, you will see that there's also some ripples in the entertainment circles. I expect that you can connect all of the things happening right there.
I ain't taking no slice from nobody. It's God. That's the only person that I serve. My mom ain't here. My mama was sacrificed. Michael Jordan. What about him? His daddy, right? Bill Cosby, his son, right? Dr. Dre, his son. You're out in Hollywood, a lot of people come up missing. Feels like it might be a lot of that in order to control, traumatize. To show God is better than the devil. The devil took all the producers, the musicians, the designers, moved us all out to Hollywood, moved us all out to New York, chasing gold statues. Literally signing a contract and selling our souls. They got contracts out there that say you can't say Jesus. When we was working on this album, people used to be coming over the studio just to say Jesus as loud as they wanted to. You can say Jesus in your studio.
Nobody can be a laissez-faire Christian anymore. You can't be a nominal Christian now. It won't work. These are terrible times, and you really don't need nobody to tell you this as a Christian. In these times, we need to understand the schemes, what God is doing, and what Satan is doing as well. But the first point of call is to know what God is doing, because when you know what God is doing, you will be able to tell exactly what the devil is about. Usually the devil just reacts to the purposes and agenda of God. And please, if you are new to the channel, please remember to subscribe, hit the bell notification, like, drop a comment, and share if you don't mind. I really would appreciate. I'm usually very amazed to see how ignorant Christians usually are about the times and the seasons, about the happenings, about the schemes of the devil. And I see it the way they react to issues. I see it the way they handle their lives. It's really, really unfortunate to see that members of the body cannot discern, cannot see exactly what is happening even before them. I'm not saying this for you to be afraid. Of course, you shouldn't be afraid. I'm saying this for you to be aware. Actually, when I see the much that is happening, I'm excited, even though sometimes this will have adverse effect on our respective lives, because the devil is even more vicious now, because he knows he has but a short time. I'm not afraid. I'm excited because I can see the very purposes of God in eternal life coming to pass in my very own time. I'm excited. I'm not afraid. But you see, it bothers me to see the way certain Christians usually handle these things and take these things. A number of us are quite ignorant, and it's very, very dangerous. Rather, we should be like the children of Issachar in 1 Chronicles 12:22, who knew the signs and the seasons. And I like the way the NLT particularly puts it. From the tribe of Issachar, there were 200 leaders of the tribe with their relatives. All these men understood the times and knew the best course for Israel to take. This should actually be the case for Christians today, but fortunately, largely, it is not so. So when you see those of us in this circle trying to call out some things and some happenings, some practices in the body, it is because we understand these things. Now, if you go back to some of the videos I made about the Duncan Williams sword development, you would see all kinds of comments. Again, I want to thank you for engaging. I am particularly very, excited to see people coming on board to try and engage, some supporting and encouraging, others criticizing. It's all right. But when I look at the comments, I am bothered because when you see the way some Christians think and how they can align with certain things that are clearly contrary to God's principles, contrary to gospel truth, it bothers me. It really bothers me. And without no clear-cut biblical backing, sometimes you want to ask yourself where they are resting the line of their thoughts. So when you see those of us in this circle try to call out, like the voice of one crying in the wilderness, calling out and screaming and saying the much that is happening with Duncan Williams and the sword now, it's not good. We know exactly what we're saying. A lot of us really do not know that the church is in a new season, as it has to do with the end of time, as it has to do with the end of days. Now, the coronavirus was significant. Many of you have actually forgotten that we actually had that pandemic. For me, this is my own thinking, my own opinion. I believe that that event marked the end of an era and the ushering in or the starting of another era. An era that is really, really crucial. There's a lot that will happen in this season and we cannot afford to be ignorant. If you look at the most that is happening in the Western world, if you have been watching, I expect you to be watching, you will see contentions. The kingdom of light and darkness contending. You will see the machinations of the devil. You will see the kingdom of darkness, rising up to the occasion and developing and implementing schemes. If you've been taking notes, you will see that there's also some ripples in the entertainment circles. I expect that you can connect all of the things happening right there. You will see that there's a struggle. It's about the kingdom of light and darkness. It's about the agenda of God and the agenda of Satan. We'll have time to look at all of that subsequently in other videos, and we will see exactly what is happening. I expect you to be saying them. I expect you to be following the events, because this has to do with your eternal destiny. And then you see the international crisis, the wars, and you see the shift in international political economy, and you see all of the twists and changes happening in all of that. These are all a product of the seasons and the times. The fact that we are building towards the end of age. The fact that God has an agenda and is implementing, and the kingdom of darkness is responding. You should actually see these things. You should see them. And like I said earlier on, I am particularly very excited to live in these times, to see the much that is happening, how a number of Bible prophecies are being fulfilled before our very own eyes. And it baffles me how people can still live and not believe in the gospel of Jesus Christ. How much more do you want to see? Oh my God. How much more do you want to know? So it's so exciting for me. So the more that I say is not for you to be afraid, no. Even with all of the troubles that it will bring to us as Christians, we should be excited. Be not afraid of he that can kill the body, but cannot kill the soul. It may be more difficult for you as a Christian to survive now, to get along. The fact that you're a Christian nowadays is a recipe for trouble, because the devil will come for you. Why? He wants to take you out of the faith. That is the real deal. The faith. He wants to pull you out. And that's exactly why they are taking over all of the sectors of human endeavor. They want to dominate in those environments so that they can call the shots. And that's why we really have to define what true success is. That is where many Christians usually fall to the devices of the devil, having not been able to define what true success is. So in a bid to be successful, people do a lot of compromises, not understanding exactly what is happening. And that's why you cannot afford to be ignorant. And that's why Paul keeps shouting, be circumspect. Peter would say, be vigilant. These are terrible times, people of God. We cannot afford to walk like mortal men. For a soldier does not entangle himself with the affairs of a civilian. Stand firm, stand firm. Right now, the kingdom of darkness is even more explicit. They're not even hiding these things anymore. You can see it. But unfortunately, they know that a number of us, even in the church, are so distracted that we don't even know. We can't even see. We can't even see the hand of darkness. We can't even see the much that they are doing. in furthering the agenda, in trying to influence you. Now look at the entertainment, look at business. It's so visible, it's so clear. Now you see the much that happened in the Balenciaga controversy. I tell you the truth, that was Satan trying to take another step forward. That was Satan trying to launch a major agenda. Now, if you notice, the kingdom of darkness has been very particular about sexual perversions. It appears that that is a very significant part of Satan's agenda. It would appear that the more they do all of these sexual perversions, contrary to the will of God, in open confrontation to God's principles and ideas, it appears that the more they do all of these sexual perversions, the more they probably are able to advance their cause. It appears that it is the spirit that all of these sexual perversions release to the atmosphere, to the earth, that enables them to, move smoothly and further the agenda.
Now, in case you somehow missed the whole Balenciaga story, it all started in mid-November when Balenciaga released their 2022 gift collection holiday campaign featuring children.
Balenciaga is one of the world's most expensive clothing brands in the world, and for some reason, their Christmas ad campaign included pictures of a child with a bear. When you zoom in on the bear, it's dressed, shall we say, unusually. People who know about these things say its outfit is inspired by bondage outfits used in certain sex acts.
Meanwhile, another disturbing Balenciaga and Adidas campaign went viral after fans discovered the campaign featured documents from a federal court case that upheld a CP law. Balenciaga initially blamed everything on the photographer who shot the campaign, but when the photographer exposed them for lying, they took responsibility for the teddy bear photo shoot. However, they still blamed third parties for including the court documents.
Now, I particularly think that the man of sin, the Antichrist himself, would probably be a gay. I'm just thinking, it's just my thinking, because I see the way Satan is so particular about these sexual perversions. That's exactly what they did with Balenciaga. Now, the kingdom of darkness has achieved a lot. They've covered a lot of ground in the LGBT. Now, Europe is totally taking over, and they are doing very well in the United States. A number of the states in the United States have legalized gay marriage. It's normal now in Europe, and it's almost like normal in the United States right now. They've gone into the education system. They've infused all of this like it's normal. So the whole concept and idea of gender is totally messed up in the West right now, to the point that they've been able to influence the system to accept the distortion that there are some other genders outside the male and female that there truly is. And that's a win for the kingdom of darkness. They've done so well. The LGBT is so powerful right now, and they can almost get anything done in the world. I guess where they really have a challenge now is Africa and the Middle East. It's just a matter of time. I think they will make more audacious incursions into those areas, and I doubt if those places can really stand. Now, having done so well in distorting gender ideas, gender concepts, they are obviously now moving to another level of perversion, which is to try to make pedophilias and all of those related sexual perversions normal, child pornography and all of that. Trying to sexualize children. They are not just comfortable with the much they have done with gay rights and all of those things. They now want to take it even further, which for me is really audacious. And if you see the much that they did with Balenciaga, because they control virtually all of these big corporations, big outfit across the various sectors of the industry globally. And what they did was to use Balenciaga to try to launch that agenda. Obviously, it failed woefully, but trust me, they now know that they really need to go back and strategize. They now know that in that area, there's much work to be done. And I tell you the truth, they are going to come back more softly. They're going to come back prepared, better. You may never catch them in their tracks. So this is it. This is what the devil is doing. You should know it. Why? Because you understand exactly the times and the seasons. You know exactly what God is doing. But you see, sometimes it's so disheartening, it's so heartbreaking to see how Christians are so ignorant, so averse to these things. It's heartbreaking. And I'm using this medium, using this platform to remind the church again that, hey, these are terrible times. We cannot afford to live like the way we used to. We cannot afford to be ignorant. We must know exactly what the devil is doing and how to appropriate ourselves. And going back to the Duncan Williams sword and related developments, some of us in this circle cannot stop shouting because we know exactly what that means. We know the implication of that. And you can just stay back, criticizing, throwing jibes and throwing stones and questioning our audacity to do the much that we're doing. Because you don't understand. You don't know what is happening. If you know exactly what's that development and how they are using that sword, what they are trying to do, if you know exactly what that means and the implication it has on the faith, it will bother you. You will truly be bothered. Because as far as I'm concerned, that is a new introduction that the devil is going to use, and is going to use it well. What Duncan Williams, with all due respect to him, and all of those ministers who are now aligning with that agenda are doing is handling the devil a very worthy tool, a very wonderful tool to use against the church. It is error. That's all the devil needs. Now let me tell you something. Now some of you are standing really well, and the devil can really not pull you out of faith anymore because you've gone so deep. But hear this and hear this well. He still has plans for you. He does. Oh, come on, the devil is very resilient. You should know him. So somebody made a joke and said, maybe the devil has a fruit of the spirit. It has to be patience. That's a joke anyways. That being is patient. And he can set a trap and wait for so long. And that's exactly what Paul said. Let he that think he stands take heed lest he falls. Now, the devil can do so well in keeping those outside the faith in perpetual darkness, in continuing to reject the knowledge of God. But I tell you the truth, he has plans for those in the faith too. All he wants is to touch your faith. That's what really matters to him. So he has plans for you. And the only way the devil can reach many Christians who are quite firm in the faith, is by error. False doctrine. And do not be too quick to say, well, I know how to deal with false doctrines. I am rooted in the faith. I understand the faith. I understand the basic doctrine of Christ and all of that. Hey. Don't be too quick to say that. He may just use your favorite preacher. Ephesians 5:15-17. Now, you probably are more familiar with the King James Version, but I actually like the way the NLT puts it. So be careful how you live. Don't live like fools, but like those who are wise. Make the most of every opportunity in these evil days. Don't act thoughtlessly, but understand what the Lord wants you to do. What would the Lord want us to do in this season? What would the Lord want us to do when we see these things happening? So you see what I'm talking about. Circumspection is key in this season. We cannot afford to lose guard. This is the season of standing firm. This is the season of going back to the basic doctrine of Christ, to reacquaint yourself, to remind yourself, to reabreast yourself with. Because I tell you the truth, the devil has plans for you. He has plans for me. He has plans for everybody. But should you be afraid? No. Because who can separate us from the love of God? Who can? In all these things, we are more than conquerors through Christ that loves us. So it is not for us to be afraid. It is for us to be aware, to understand, because a little leavens the whole lump. All the devil may have to do is just a little tweaking, a little bending, a little error. And that may be all he needs to bring a mighty man down. A little leavens the whole lump, so Christ will say. And 1 Peter 5:8 comes to mind again. And I know you are very familiar with how the King James put it, but I think I also like how the NLT puts it. It says, stay alert. Stay alert. Watch out for your great enemy, the devil. He prowls around like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour. He prowls around like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour. People of God, followers of Christ, these are terrible times, and you should know it so you can properly appropriate yourself. You should walk circumspectly. This is the season to stand firm. Everything you ever learned in Christ will be very relevant in this season. Now, you cannot afford to slack. No, you can't. If you have been studying the Bible, these are the times to study more. If you have not been studying the Bible, these are the times to learn to study the Bible and actually study. If you have been praying before, these are the times to pray more. If you have never really known how to pray, these are the times to learn how to pray and actually pray. You cannot afford to be lagging. You cannot afford to slack. These are the times to desire the presence of God so that more of God can rub off on us. There's no one that's going to survive by his or our own strength in these seasons. We need the much of God that we can possibly have. Of course, we have the Spirit of God inside us. There's really nothing that we desire He hasn't given us. But we must be aware of this. Like Paul would say in Ephesians 1, that the eyes of our understanding be enlightened. Beyond knowing the times and the seasons, we need to exactly know the resources that is available to us as God's people. And we increase in this knowing as we desire and stay in God's presence. These are the times to learn to stay in God's presence. These are the times to pray and pray more. These are the times to study and study more. We have to just do this. Personally, these are the things that bother me. How do I stay more in God's presence? How do I pray more? How do I study more? Because I know I need it. I know I can't do without it in these seasons. We really can never do without them anyway. So we have to be deliberate. These are the times to be deliberate. Nobody can be a laissez-faire Christian anymore. You can't be a nominal Christian now. It won't work. You are either going to put your 2 feet in or you're out. And like the experience of Jesus in Revelation 3, it's not going to have you cold. These are the times to seek to grow in Christ. These are the times to make deliberate decisions to improving our knowledge of God. It has never been more imperative. It has never been more important to do that than now. And I restate, these are the times to go back to the basic doctrines of Christ. Now, if you look at the Duncan Williams Sword development and you see the responses and how people respond, what I can see is foundation problem. A lot of Christians actually do have a very weak foundation, and that has to be addressed. Otherwise, you can't stand. You most likely will fall in these seasons. We must embrace the simplicity of the gospel. Any attempts to have all of these additions that they're bringing now will not all go well. It will not. These are terrible times. And when you see people like us do the much that we do, like the voice of one crying in the wilderness, some persons even accuse me of trying to garner views and trying to do all of that, which is so ridiculous. It is because we know these things. It is because we know the devices of the devil and what the devil is trying to do. Unfortunately, he's going to use the church against the church. Now, in the times that we live in doing righteousness and living right and doing the much that God wants you to do, walking by the lead of the Spirit day in, day out, your fellow Christians may be the biggest obstacle to living right, because you would naturally expect a Christian to support and encourage you to do what is right. But unfortunately, you may not have that. And do not be surprised. Your church member may not urge you on, may not clap for you when you do right. You may not have that luxury. So these are the times to know what you believe and stand for it. These are the times to be firm in the truth, understanding the will of God. Nobody will clap for you to do right. Nobody. So do not expect your Christian friend to support you to do right. You may not have that luxury. You may not. I did say the other time, these are the times to be taking sides. You need to know where you belong. These are not the times to be doing patronages, trying to align with ideas that are contrary to the will of God because you don't want to offend no one, because you want to keep your friends. No. Jesus says, if you are ashamed of me before men, I will deny you before God. Fellow believers, these are the times to stand firm. I tell you the truth, trouble is coming. Our only safety is Christ. And for us who are in the faith, these are the times to watch for offenses. Don't be easily taken by offenses. These are the times to watch for false doctrines, errors. And for me on this platform, I have made a covenant with my own self. Yeah, we will continue to shout this. We will not be moved. As I see them, we will bring it up and we will talk about it. This is not vilifying. This is not necessarily just calling people out. We must establish what is true, because these things are in public domain and we're going to talk about them in the public so the truth can be properly established. And like God will say to the Israelites, I put before you life and death. You have the free will to choose, but he will always urge you to choose life. For the thief comes not but to steal, to kill, and to destroy. But Christ is always here to give life and give it even more abundantly. On what path are you walking on? Abundant life or the path of your man of God, your preacher, even when he's in error? Paul says, follow me as I follow Christ. We must not forget that the author and finisher of our faith is Christ. Christ himself. He died, he hung on that cross, was buried, and he resurrected, and is the one who sits in the place of authority. Christ is King. And like Paul would say in Galatians chapter 2, let us not give in to Satan for a single moment. Even as he introduces all of these errors and twists, let us not give in to all of these pressures, no matter in what form the devil presents them. I build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. It is God that is advancing. It is the church that is advancing. It is the kingdom of darkness that is reacting. You have overcome the world. God will always win. Stand firm. People of God, stand firm. This is my charge to you today. As I charge you, I charge myself. So guys, welcome to the channel. It's Pleroma Culture. Basically, we'll talk about faith and faith-related matters, talk about church matters within Nigeria, in Africa, and all around the world. Faith matters, basically, that is what the channel is about. Please jump on it. These are little community, a little, church. Like Christ did say, where 2, 3 are gathered, I am there, and indeed, it's a church. So come and join this little community and let's have some really wonderful conversation.